Hello. Now, recently I've had some comments on my videos requesting that I take a look at a particular kind of question that occasionally comes up in higher and National 5 UAE, and that is the link question. Now, the good news is that link questions are relatively easy to answer if you know the technique involved. So today we're going to have a look at that technique and a look at a worked example. So let's dive in. Now, the first thing that we have to do before we can go any further is establish what we mean by this concept of a link in a UAE passage. Well, if you look at this side of the screen, you'll see that I've got a picture of a chain, and the way that a chain works is that each individual link in the chain is connected both to the one immediately before it and to the one immediately after it, and that is the way that a new link is formed. And it's exactly the same concept when we're thinking about a passage in UAE. So if you think of this little diagram here, we've got one idea in blue and another idea in green, and the link in some senses has to contain both of these ideas. It has to overlap in some way the blue idea, and has to overlap in some way the green idea in order for it to make that link between the two. So that concept of a link containing something of what has gone before and something of what is to come is crucial in understanding how to tackle this kind of question. So let's look at a worked example. So here is a passage about the very exciting topic of a literary canon. Nothing to do with pirate ships, but the idea canon in the sense that a body or of a group of texts that are seen as culturally important and valuable and therefore worth passing on to the coming generation. Riveting stuff, I'm sure you'll agree, but it's going to be very useful for our discussion of link questions. So let's have a look at this. Now, this first idea here, we're going to, just like our diagram in the previous slide, put in blue. That is idea one. And we'll put this second, this bottom passage in green, because that can be idea two. And in red, this middle paragraph, because that is the link. So let's have a wee look through this section. One understanding of a literary canon is that writing accrues value with age. It gains value with age because certain texts have stood the test of time, having been read and deemed worthy of preservation by successive generations. They are imbued with a cultural capital that demands a certain reverence from students. But while this notion of a literary canon may appeal to traditionalists, it appalls radicals who dismiss it simply as the means by which societal elitism is entrenched. Who decides what is to be passed on, they cry. Where are the voices of the marginalised and the oppressed, they demand. Literature should subvert conventional power structures, not support them, they insist, and so on and so on. Now, for this red paragraph to make a successful link at this stage in the passage, as we've noted in the previous slide, it must contain part of what goes before and part of what is to come. So let's have a look at what that might be. So this paragraph here is really explaining the concept, or at least one version of the concept, of a literary canon. That idea that over time texts gain a certain cultural value simply because they have lasted for a long time. So this But while this notion of a literary canon may appeal to traditionalists, it appalls radicals who simply dismiss it as the means by which societal elitism is entrenched. So this notion of a literary canon is exactly what we've been talking about in the blue paragraph, in the paragraph above. Okay, this notion of a literary canon. But what part of this red paragraph introduces what is to come in the green paragraph? Well, if we read on, but while this notion of a literary canon may appeal to traditionalists, it appalls radicals who dismiss it simply as the means by which societal elitism is entrenched. Well, this idea of appalling radicals is clearly taken on in this green paragraph, where you get these questions. Who decides what is to be passed on? They cry. Where are the voices of the marginalised and the oppressed? They demand. Literature should be subvert conventional power structures, not support them. They insist. So that idea of cry, demand, insist, that contains that idea of being appalled at this whole concept of literature being studied in this way. So hopefully you can see that this red section is a successful link because it contains something of the idea that went before and something of the idea that is to come. So how do you then take this and turn it into a successful answer in UAE? Well, let's look ahead. So the question that you might get asked could be something like this: how does paragraph 2 act as a link at this point in the passage? Now, it might not be phrased exactly like that, but you will be directed to this concept of a link in some way, and it's crucial that you understand and that you have learned a simple structure that will ensure you get the marks. And that is simply this: quote, and then this little expression refers back to the previous idea, and then explain what that previous idea is. And then quote introduces the next idea, and then explain what that next idea is. And perhaps the easiest thing at this stage is just to show you what that answer might look like for the passage we looked at above. So remember that we said that this notion of a literary canon, we highlighted that in blue because it referred back to the previous idea. So this notion of a literary canon is our first quote, and then we've got our little expression refers back to the previous idea, and then we're explaining what that previous idea was of books being seen as important simply because they are old. And then in our second bullet point, we've got the quote that we highlighted in green because it introduced the next idea, appalls radicals. And then we've got our little expression, introduces the next idea, and then we need to explain what that idea is, that some activists are angered by this view of education. So there, in very simple terms, is how you go about identifying and then answering on linking questions. I hope you find it helpful, and if you do, please share with your friends or anyone else that you think might be helped by it too. I hope you're working hard, and all the best for your studies. Take care.